Round of applause. Limited audience, but ensure that your applause covers the whole, hall also. I'll also like to introduce and welcome Professor Dr. Jawar Singh. Professor Dr. Jawar Singh is also is a professor from the Indian Institute of Technology, Patna. He is also founder of Qtino Labs, and just we were chatting, and he has just briefly told about his successful exit. So he's not just the professor who's teaching, but is also practicing the same in the form of his own ideas implementation. So we are literally, and I'm sure we are proud to have you, Dr. Jawar Singh. Please welcome you on the dais. Let me also introduce Dr. Devender Singh, Deputy Director General of TEC. This is the Department of Telecommunications in India. Dr. Devender Singh has spent multiple years in the standards formalization, standards ecosystem, because you understand the telecom space especially is governed by these standards, and these standards are very critical because unless and until, because an interoperable ecosystem can only work if each and every device, each and every node can be standardized and has to be standardized, right? So Dr. Devender Singh, Sri Devender Singh represents the government, from the perspective of telecom. So let me welcome with a warm applause from the audience, Dr. Sri Devender Singh on the dais, please. I'm also honored to join by Dr. Sarabjot. Dr. Sarabjot Singh Anand, he is a co-founder and chief data scientist of Tatras, also the co-founder of Sabad Foundation. I have known, Sarabjot ji from almost, if I'm not wrong, 7-8 years now, and I've seen his passion in the space of AI. It's not about just what he wants to achieve through his, Tatras data, but also about how, and I think his work in the space of growing AI talent is well recognized in probably in some regions, especially in the region of Punjab, right? So Dr. Sarabjot, thank you for being here. I request and welcome you on the dais. Pioneer data science, so big round of applause for him. He has also roots in academia at Warwick and Ulster. He has a very global perspective in this particular space altogether. Let me introduce our next two speakers or two panelists on this agenda today. Vikas Srivastav. He's a Chief Growth Strategist of Vinsys IT Services Private Limited. Vinsys is one of our technology training collaborator and partner of STPI Scale-Up program. Vikas has almost 16 plus years in enterprise consulting, cloud, workforce upskilling. And I think Vikas has a great perspective to share in terms of what is really reskilling is requirement today within the whole ecosystem of the AI workforce. So with big round of applause, please welcome Vikas Srivastav. Last but not the least, let us also give a warm welcome to Kunal Gupta, Managing Director of Mount Talent Consulting. He has been doing talent advisory. He runs his own job search portal. He understands, he works very closely with the industry and has a clear perspective of what is the industry requirement and where is the gap. So with a round of applause, Kunal, welcome on the dais as well. Thank you for everyone. And let me, let me probably switch my place as well so that it'll be easier for us to start the whole discussion. Hello. Yes. So I think let me quickly start, and I'll probably start from my immediate left, Dr. Sarabjot ji. When we talk about next-gen AI, and when we talk about next-gen AI as a space, next-gen AI as, the whole, from the talent perspective, from the opportunity perspective, what is your perspective? Briefly, we'll touch upon each one of you on the defining next-gen AI so that the audience understands very clearly what does next-gen AI really means. So over to you.
So to me, there are two camps here, right? One is the people who want to generate the next wave of AI. And then, of course, they're the ones that have to use AI to be more efficient in their jobs. Now, for both of them, I think what is very, very important is that they have to be critical thinkers more than any technology as such, because there is, a great move towards outsourcing your thinking to AI, and that's a problem. We need to recognize that AI is not perfect. We need to recognize that there are certain deficiencies in it, and therefore we have to question what we get from that AI. And if we can get people who can critically think about the problem they are trying to solve and then take risks. I think risk taking is going to be another very, very important aspect. And having a foundational understanding of what is possible today with AI and what is not possible today with AI. Because if we don't recognize the deficiencies and start to regard AI as an oracle that always tells us the truth, we are going to get into trouble. So these are very, very important aspects apart from, of course, technology.
Thank you. To Devendra Singh ji, your perspective on the next gen AI technology in a very brief. Yeah.
Hello. Next gen AI, I feel he should have a strong expertise in AI, and he should have skills to solve the real world problems also. And he should adapt to new technologies also. He should be able to work in different sectors also. And above all, I feel he should be aware of the regulations in the sector and in AI also. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah, hello. So
Professor
to-
Alok. Yeah.
So to me, actually, the next gen AI should not only the AI next gen should aware of the AI algorithms, but basically they can make products or solution with customer facing, and they should understand not only the algorithms, but the way those algorithms are mapped onto the hardware. To me, a grounding, solid grounding of hardware, solid grounding of computer science, or even the engineering domain is must actually. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Alok. Sorry for my mistake in pronouncing
No.
your name wrong. Yes.
Thank you, Subodh. I think the next gen AI is largely a T-shaped thing. So you need to be domain specialists, deep domain specialists. You need to be fluent in AI skills, whatever software, hardware, etc. you are looking at. And then you should be able to understand red teaming and containment. So if you have these three, then probably we will be able to solve most of the problems we face in India today.
Sure. Please, Kunal. Yeah.
Subodhji, I think your question is very important. What do I understand or what do we understand with next-gen AI? You know, next-gen AI is the infrastructure for intelligence. Like you currently have this infrastructure wherein we are able to express our views and they go out to the world. You know, next generation of AI is like this infrastructure meant to multiply our intelligence, our reasoning, our research, our values, our creativity, our judgments, and what the future holds for us. You know, we are going to see a new wave of new materials. And for a very long time, we haven't seen any major materials coming apart from the basic alloys that we have been using, the process changes which are going to come about in the next generation with the use of the next generation AI, the generation of models. You know, we talk about many things about differentiation in the society from a digital divide to this new age AI divide, but it could also at the same time help us reach out to the inclusive society in general with vernacular languages, you know, multiplying and extrapolating the reach of what a common, normal, common man can do. Earlier, they were dependent on languages like English, but with the expansion of the next-gen AI platforms, tools, local vernacular languages wherein you can speak and give instructions to the computer in Hindi, in your local languages, get access to data, knowledge. Like I said, you know, you could just build anything. We have seen this with a tool called TikTok, you know, a tool about 10, 12 years back which started. And it created a wave of influencers. Otherwise, a language or a platform meant only for the English and the literate, you know, went on to the masses. So I think next-gen AI, like I said, is just, in one word, an infrastructure of intelligence, multiplying our ability to think and, you know, make judgments in the future as well.
Thank you. Very well said. It is the infrastructure level intelligence which has to be created and which defines the next gen AI. And carrying forward the same thought, I'll ask Vikas to share his opening remarks on the next gen AI.
Thank you, Subodhji. So I think most of the important aspect has already been covered by the panel.
You want
What I wanted to add is, for me, the next gen talent combines three important things. First is technical mastery, second is ethical judgment, and third is real world problem solving capabilities. So we need people who understand, as I said, we should know, the people should know where AI fits and where it doesn't, right? So I think this is the most important thing which I wanted to add.
Thank you. I think for the audience, it is important to understand that when we talk about next gen AI and we talk about next gen AI talent and the next gen AI talent gap, right? We got a clear perspective right from a critical thinking, right? Going to the level of not just the opening up the layers of the AI, no, but from the perspective that one has to start thinking about the new ways and new layers in which the AI technology is having an impact. Whether it's materials which Kunal talked about, whether it is the infrastructure intelligence again which he talked about, whether it is a foundational knowledge and foundational algorithms you talk about, the next gen AI talent gaps exist everywhere, and accordingly I think I'll ask Sarabjot ji now to probably talk something on specifically from your perspective of both as Tatras and Sabut Foundation. You have seen the whole AI evolution and you have seen the gaps which have been there and you have tried to fill the gaps already. So my question to you is, when we talk about the evaluation of the fresh AI talent, right? What's your approach? Because that approach will lead us, in terms of ensuring that, how will this whole space will grow up, right? So your opening remark on that, yeah.
Sure, thank you, Subodhji. So, when we look at talent today, what we assess is their problem-solving skills.
Okay.
We look at, how keen are they on learning themselves. So have they taken control of their own agency in learning in the future? Because what's happening today, and I've seen this over the years, right? A lot of students are very focused because they want to get a job. They are focused on learning libraries. Even in 2018 when we started Sabudh Foundation, because we found there was a huge gap in AI skilling here in India, we found that till we got them to program a neural network, they felt they weren't doing anything, right? And now, of course, it's LLMs. Everybody wants to learn LangChain and that's about it. But they have to understand the foundations. The foundations, if they are weak, we are going to do interesting things, but are not going to do amazing things. And so the focus has to be on building a strong foundation, increasing their curiosity in terms of what they're doing, and getting them to think about how they can be creative in what they're, the solutions that they are engineering for their customers. Now in Tatras, we work with startups in the US and develop their AI for them. Now to do that, somebody mentioned domain being very important. And what we are constantly training our folks to say is understand the problem from the customer's perspective, right? It's not just about algorithms. When you create a solution, a successful solution is going to be one that solves a problem. It doesn't matter what technology you use. And that is a key differentiation between the training that we provide and what is available otherwise in terms of just skilling on libraries.
Right. And thank you. And I think, for all the, people outside, sitting here, most important part, I think, as Sarabjot ji said, and probably any one of you can add also whenever you feel like, curiosity is one part, right? Because curiosity to our human minds adds that element of learning. And when the curiosity is there comes a creativity. And once you have this curiosity combined with creativity, then you can understand the customer problem, if I'm not wrong, right? You can understand the customer ecosystem. It's just about the customer ecosystem from the perspective where you'll make money. But when you talk about social impact, because social impact, even the people who are getting benefited from the technology, they might not be directly paying you, but you have creating great amount of social, equivalence outside there. So it becomes important from their perspective. And when we combine these three and we map that with the AI, which is such a powerful language right now in terms of technology, I think the solutions which you see outside are just a few examples of what really wonders can be created when you bring these three elements together, right? So I think in similar lines, I will ask Dr. Devinder Singh ji, because he comes from his background on the whole telecom space, right? And today we talk about native AI telecom infrastructure, right? When we talk about native AI, they not be just AI ready, but they need to also bring in AI in their own operations, right? When I say AI readiness, it's all about the scale, the kind of compute, kind of technology, kind of infrastructure they need to create, right? But how do they approach from a standards perspective when you see? Sir, I think Devendraji, when you see from the standards perspective, because you see future, right? You are looking into 6G as a standards, right? What is the role of an AI is in terms of standard creation, and what is the role in terms of technology when standards are getting defined? So from that angle, your thoughts around on the same.
Uh, the present telecom engineers, they are very strong in networking, but the future network that the 6G would be coming, it will be more dependent on the AI. That the present technology 5G is, in that case, the AI is add on that. But in 6G, each and every component has got AI inbuilt in that only. So at present, the planning is done in a static way. Components are selected and then the effect is seen. But in 6G, it will be self-learning type of thing. So the engineers would be required to know machine learning. And the present cases, whenever there is some fault, an alarm is generated and an engineer is supposed to take corrective action. But in 6G, it would be happening, AI will predict what kind of fault can come and it will take corrective action on its own. And at present, most of the decisions are taken at the center level only. But in 6G, the intelligence will be distributed at the edge also. So the decision will be taken at a distributed level. So the engineer must be able to plan everything in considering that the distributed decision will be taken. So in that case, on the standards, as far as the standards are concerned, standards for 6G are being finalized. They are not final, but it is already decided that each and every component will be having AI. In addition to that, you were talking about the standards. Since in TEC, in the Telecom Engineering Center, we have already published some standards on AI. So the telecom engineers should also be aware of the standards which they are supposed to follow for implementing of an AI. At present, the telecom engineers are using AI, but in future, the telecom engineers will design and operate and use it. The most of the decisions will be taken by AI. The human will only supervise only. Thank you.
Thank you. I think when we talk about the telecom space, I think 2 or 3 critical things which probably is of interest to the audience, as Devender ji talked about. We talk about the AI, agentic AI, and the agentic AI been taking care the operations part. And I think from a skill perspective, it is important that when you look into the agentic AI ecosystem, you need to go deeper into the particular technology or particular sector, because each industry gives its new challenges and problem even for agentic AI ecosystem, right? And when you talk about the infrastructure readiness, right, it is important that today the whole telecom sector is one of the sector, and I think I'll come back to you on the perspective of how is telecom sector creating robustness and fairness when you talk about the to the anti-spam, or because Airtel, for example, one of the biggest telecom player, is today talking about AI technology powering the whole ecosystem of the anti-spam or spam to take care of the spam, new nuances of the spam, right? So from that perspective, how does it be becoming important? Next, I think I'll touch upon again, I think to Professor Jawar, when you look into the layer of the hardware and below, right? Because when we talk about the AI and we talk about 6 layers, as has been spoken about across the spectrum, the most promising and most important layer is also about not just the applications, but also about the hardware which is powering up the whole AI, the need and speed and the requirement of the AI, right? So when you talk about today, from a compute perspective, or you go below, right, in terms of, I think Kunal talked about the materials, right? But when you talk about the compute and below, both in the form of the energy and the the cooling and the other challenges which are there, right? What is your perspective, and how, education institutes like, IITs are looking into this perspective from the training their fresh graduates?
All right. So, I mean, this is quite interesting because very rarely people talk about how those algorithms runs, how those AI models runs actually. So, honestly, if I say these models are very expensive in terms of not cost, but in terms of power, I will say, and cost is obviously associated with it actually. So, if I say if I take a simple example, the power requirement of, if I take a very basic NVIDIA processor, it consumes around 500 to 700 watt. But if I say the same processor, our human brain is also having a very beautiful processor. I can say it can computes a lot, and it just consumes 20 watt power. So you can see there is a huge gap between the processing capabilities, the most state-of-the-art processors that we have, and the most cognitive processors that we all have, there is a lots of gap actually. So the gap need to be bridged. So there are lots of researches going on in this domain. We usually call the neuromorphic computing or brain-inspired computing, where these algorithms can be mapped at the hardware in a efficient manner. Another example I can give you, the DeepSeek, when it came and when it first time pops up or surfaced in the market actually, the NVIDIA's stocks, slumped down quite severely. And the reason was that their processor was quite efficient actually. That was the only thing. So people think, okay, we may do the same thing in a more efficient way. So we need people basically, they not only think from the algorithm perspective, but they also think from the hardware perspective, hardware security also. I will add here one more term, hardware security, because the AI can be weaponized and can also be used for neutralization purpose. So the hardware play a very crucial role. Algorithms are okay. So we need people basically, they understand not from the algorithm, but all the way down to the hardware implementation. How your implementation is secure, trusted, and the reliable. So I hope
No, thank
it
you.
serves the purpose.
Thank you. No, thank you. I
very
think
much.
you touched upon the element of the security, and I think when AI comes into play, the just not the security elements of the the algorithms, but also the important thing which has propped up is the biasness and the robustness and the fairness of the algorithms, right? So I'm sure some of you will talk about that as a gap from the talent perspective, and how do we skill and reskill the people who can be used for this particular, filling the layers across the layers. They can be probably be more, coming into the ecosystem, right? So with that, I think I'll ask Dr. Alok, when you look into from a university academia perspective, today we talk about population scale AI implementation, right? And I think when we talk about population scale AI implementation, it is not about the whole critical thinking, and the thinking part also need to be changed, and hence academia needs to be geared up to create that kind of curiosity and learning from the perspective of students, right? So what is your take from the industry and academia, perspective, when you see a gap, right? How are you gearing up your students from a perspective of, from a scale of AI perspective, and from that particular element?
No, I essentially come from a non-STEM university where we specialize in law. And we have other 12 schools. As you have seen that, it took a lot of time for other technologies to proliferate. But when ChatGPT came, within a few months, they had 100 million users. Now, within by end of 2025, they had close to about 800 million users. Now, the proliferation of technology is so fast. The evolution of large language models is so fast that from something called base generative AI models, we move very fast towards cloud AI models, to agentic AI models. And I was speaking to somebody from industry just before this event while we were sitting in the VIP lounge. The AGI is here, literally here. In India, we missed the basic initial buzz for generative AI. Thanks to Professor Jawar Singh, who had a startup and worked it out. But we need to really look into something like identifying capability to design, not just models, but real world products. Indians are great at designing models, but not products. That happened with the software services sector also. Now, as somebody mentioned Anthropic, as Anthropic has gotten, the stocks are sliding. We don't realize as to whether we'll survive. Somebody said, Mr. Khosla said, 5 years later, there'll be no IT service in the country. While on my way to this venue, a vice chancellor of a state university who is a very close friend of mine and a former student also, he said, where am I going to go? I'm working at 20-30% of faculty strength. I have no budget. I don't even have a GPU, right? We were talking 6G. They don't have 4G speeds in tier 2. Mr. Devendra Singh also agreed to it. That we have that issue. So first part is actually, how do we look into the reality? The technology is moving so fast, right? And on one hand, the technology is moving so fast. On the other hand, we just don't have the capacity to, train people. The skilling element is not coming in. So what I need to say is that there are 2-3 things. One is that how do we, like again, they've been talking about use of generative AI in law. Honorable Supreme Court judges, day before yesterday, quipped that you are pushing so many petitions so fast, quoting unnecessary sources, unauthentic sources. We don't want that to happen. But my big case is that there are 5 million plus cases pending in Indian courts. 5 million plus, 80,000 cases pending in Supreme Court only. When are we going to use generative AI or probably AGI? We should start with AGI thinking as a judge, where these basic cases, Contract Act, can be easily read by them. Most of the use cases in our law and finance, I'll tell you some of the use cases, they use them to read contracts. Right. Contracts are very large. We being a common law kind of a country, we have large contracts. Say I have to do an M&A valuation, an M&A due diligence. And, Competition Commission has asked me whether I should go for this merger acquisition or not. I am a lawyer. How do I do it? I can use a generative AI software for that. I can do money laundering prevention, not just spam prevention like it's very effective spam prevention by, Airtel and all. But I can do money laundering calculations and identify which transactions work in which manner through a generative AI. So we need to develop products in these lines. The second thing I would say that safety and security of these products. How are we going to look at, the safe usage? Now, there's a term which has come up. This is called a coming wave. Mustafa Suleiman has written a book, The Coming Wave, and everybody uses. This is a coming wave. And the wave is going to drown all of us if safety and security is not there. Every young person who uses AI needs to understand what is red teaming and what is containment. I should kill my technology if it doesn't work in my favor, right? And finally, domain integration. So AI healthcare, AI law, AI education, AI finance. So all these levels basically need to be understood by educational institutions. If you ask me another question that how do we scale it up, then I'll, of course, later speak on that, but I'll tell you that we need to really work out on infrastructure. We need to work out on academic strength. We need to have large number of trained faculty members. We need to have MOUs with Western countries. All companies are based in either China or Europe or America. And the universities are generating a lot of trained resources. And Indian universities need to move forward in that direction. So I basically feel that, yes, there is a huge gap today, and we need to really answer these gaps through not just viable funding from government, but also from industry.
I tend to partly agree in terms of, the length and the breadth of the AI ecosystem has changed dramatically everywhere. When we look into the Indian talent, right? And I strongly believe, because I've been in this industry for very long now, and kind of, energy we are seeing in this particular 10 arenas hall and probably the conferences happening other side, there is a huge talent which has popped up now, right? And they're generating very good solutions. And today, India, from a solution producer perspective, they are not just doing something at the application layer or the agentic layer, but they're also looking into the foundational layer, and that's why we have seen the launch of the recent LLMs also, right? And when we look into, let's say, the launch of the server LLM or other LLMs, it's very clear people are trying to see there's a lot of data available in our country, and this data needs to be understood. And as I think, as you talked about, if you take just one particular sector called law and justice, right? And there is one company here, Lex Legis, and I was interacting with them yesterday. They have understood this problem. They've created their LLM on particular, not the large language model, but they've approached this problem with the same mentality of LLMs, right? And hence they have been able to ensure exactly what you're describing as a problem. How do you create a solutions for that? And it works on Indian data. It works on the Indian contract laws. It works on the Indian, past judgments. So that is the need of our. Now, you as an entrepreneur, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, as from a perspective of the audience sitting here, or as somebody who wants to get into this particular as a workforce, you need to clearly have the idea about each and every domain, whether it's health, as you talked about, or whether it's law and justice, has its own set of challenges and problems, right? And when there are challenges and problem, with right skill and right talent, you can actually approach and be very successful. And we see this as a leapfrog moment for each one of you, right, from the industry perspective also. So taking that thought forward, I'll ask Kunal. Kunal, you have been talking about skill gaps, especially working with students and working professionals, right? From your platform perspective, right, whatever you're seeing from your own job portal and job placements perspective, what is your take again in terms of most commonly seen, right, these certain abilities which is required, which probably should be seen by each one of them in a short term, right? What are the skills they need to fill in, whether it is learning to coexist with the with the LLMs outside there, whether it is learning to do the coding, in the, whether in the AGI as Professor Alok talked about, or creating new machine learning algorithms. What do you see as a typical problems in a short term where talent has to be ready for that?
I think I see the problem threefold when it comes to skill gap, specifically in a dynamic country like India, wherein we are living across many generations across the country. A generation which is far ahead in the future, a generation that is far behind in terms of development, capability, and education as well. The biggest skill gap that I see right now is the application, and more importantly, how do we define a problem? What we do is we have this mentality out of whatever ecosystem that we have built, we just start copying others in terms of this is the trend, so we need to go for this trend without really understanding how to define the problem first. Define the problem is about 50% of the solution achieved in itself. Define a problem in any sphere that the person is in. Like Dr. Saab said about different usage in different fields, whether it is healthcare, whether it is law, whether it is agriculture for that matter, which is catering to such a huge population in our country. Who would have thought of hydroponics, producing such huge results without the application of soil, no dependency on weather, and you can create your own environment for creating absolutely green vegetation, in the best of atmosphere without germs and without the usage of application of pesticides as well. So coming back to your question, skill gap again is going to be defined sector specific.
Right.
Different sectors are going to have different specific gaps at different specific application levels. When it comes to industry, again, what is the solution that I am providing or we are providing as a company? Our aim is to develop an employability intelligence layer. How do we define skill gap basis what kind of jobs are coming from the market, basis the jobs, what is the current skill set of the candidates. We have a scientific gap analysis in terms of what is missing. It's not that we have a very nice application tracking system. We do a recommendation algorithm using a lot of AI. The aim is, in my view, the aim is not to exclude people or reject people using AI.
Right.
When it comes to skill gap analysis, the aim is to show them that this is what is missing. This is what has to be developed. It is not rocket science that can't be developed. You take a course of 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or you do it while working in another job role, while coming to your ambitious job role. It takes time. Nothing is built in a day. But more importantly, I think a more bigger gap that I see right now, which is going to come as a huge pressure on the educational setups, whether it is at a university level or at a school level. Any which ways we keep talking about the fact that India's syllabus is very, it is not aligned to the industry. It is about 20-year-old. We don't update our syllabuses. It takes committees to take 5 years, 7 years to come up with new curriculums. By the time the new curriculum is implemented, it has already gone obsolete from an industry perspective. I think in the last 6 months, the speed of growth of AI that we have seen is going to put the maximum pressure on the policy makers of the country, specifically those catering to one is the core foundational education, the higher skilling education, and more importantly, the industry skilling which has to be needed to ensure that people understand why productivity is needed, how productivity is done. The students need to understand that boss, industry needs output, we need production, we need results. We are not, industry cannot always bridge the gap. And in India, I'll have to say it, whether it is an MSME or whether it is large industries, everybody has done their bit in terms of scaling those whom they select. And, today the success that we see in conferences like these is a lot of people who have grown through the industry and how industry has scaled people up.
Correct.
Colleges will need to ensure that AI education is for all. Application of AI for all. Output will increase. Output will lead to, more analysis in terms of how to improve the output. Production leads to more research. Research is going to lead to more efficiency in production. And it's a loop. Currently the application is going to lead to higher output in my view. Higher output in terms of what an engineer can do in 8 hours of work, what a company can do in terms of per year revenues, what our models can do, what our processes can do. And based on that, it's a regular running cycle. We can't sit in a relaxed manner right now, specifically in this changing world right now.
I'll just add to what Kunal has said. We need to de-bureaucratize education today to a great extent. In fact, we brought in this concept of institution of eminence, and I'm happy that I'm part of an institution of eminence where we can create our own curriculum. Curriculum velocity is so high that you can't give a command to faculty members to teach a particular course, especially in technology. And especially when you're talking about integrating with a particular domain, when the faculty has to work with other specialists, identify something and the needs change frequently. What has happened? It's not just that AI technologies have changed. The consumer and the user has started demanding change. For example, if you look at the crop insurance, the crop insurance idea basically means that I should have satellite pictures and I should have an understanding as to whether a crop failed or not. And this is done best using AI. And if I need to train my agriculture college students, who study in large agronomy institutions, I need to have a quick delivery of the curriculum. Sadly, we don't have that. We don't have expertise on those areas. So if you de-bureaucratize curriculum, allow more autonomy to institutions who are into technology at least, or technology applications, we'll have a much bigger national good at hand.
And I think the start has already happened with the NEP, if I'm not wrong, right? The whole focus on the national education policy and the initiatives around that has been giving more autonomy and speed towards the defining the curriculum. So I tend to, see this as a problem which was there. And there's already a lot of work has happened now, right now. And I think if we talk about, I think when you were at probably at a globally level and you were probably, you're from a Warwick experience, right? You would have seen these changes there. And do you see this coming back to India right now in that similar speed?
I don't, unfortunately, right? So at Warwick, we actually have the Jaguar Land Rover research labs on campus, right? And we were interacting with them. Even 14 years ago, we were looking at tracking the cognitive load on a driver as they drove a vehicle to understand whether we need to take some preventative action before he causes an accident, right? Now, of course, we are saying we don't need a driver. So times are changing very quickly. I think the one thing when we started Subudh, we realized that curriculum is falling short. Academics are not equipped to deal with the change that's happening. Even HR folks, when we look at it from an industry perspective, our HR folks are not evolving quick enough to evaluate candidates the right way, right? So what we did in Sabodh was, we said the center piece of our training is what we call a passion project, where we get students, we are training them in AI, machine learning and technology, but we are getting them to think about how do I solve a problem of social impact, right? And then we are giving them mentors who are from Tatras and from other organizations that are actually creating AI solutions for the global north, as they say, right? And so now the students are getting mentorship. And I think the key thing we are missing today, which is shocking for a country our size, we have companies with lots of technologists that have no choice but to keep up with technology innovation. At the same time, these people have to be trained to give back more. If we can get every person to be evaluated or valued based on how much they give back to others, then we can pair students with mentors in industry and get them to get the skills that no curriculum can give, right? Because you really need problem solving skills that are existing outside of academia. Of course, academia has great depth, and therefore they have to be part of that. And so, as Subodhji was saying, we've got to bring academia and industry closer together and solve this problem. It's not going to happen from one side alone.
Yeah. No, I think, thank you for sharing your thought on the,
Can I add a little bit?
I'll just take, Vikas first, and then you on, please go ahead.
Specifically for this, so in that way, basically from the curriculum point of view, at least, I just want to make this a small caveat actually related to this curriculum updates. At least the centrally funded technical institutions are not a problem at all. Even they are free of all those things actually. If I have to start a new course from the next semester, I'm free to run. So such kind of restrictions for curriculum updates, at least as far as I know, CFTIs are not bound to that actually, and they are quite okay.
It was not only for CFTIs, because India is 1.4 billion people, right? And majority of it are in tier 2. My basic problem is state technical institutions. The talent which comes from state technological universities, which is the best talent. And these people need scholarships. These people need multilingual support. And these teachers also need training, and there's a very large layer for the state institutions, because education being both a center as well as state funded thing, and we are in a quagmire where, new regulators are coming in, old regulators are falling, and we need to identify how to do it. So my basic thing was not CFTIs. So central funded institutions are much better off. But still, the amount of manpower you need for developing AGI kind of systems, and it is yet to see, just a matter of 5 years, we'll see how this hypothesis works, whether we are able to generate something in artificial general intelligence.
And I think all of us will have to contribute towards this transformational change, right from academia to the industry to the policy makers like us. It becomes important that we understand the speed is not required to develop the solution. Speed is required in terms of how the solutions get developed by virtue of doing right things, right? And I think to Vikas, Vikas, you have seen, because you have been coming from the AI learning space, right? So my only question to you is, you would have seen the conventional way of doing AI education in past, and how that has changed today, right? Are we still looking into the conventional classroom mechanism of making the AI learning? Or as, probably what Sarabjot said, that it's not about learning, but practicing it while learning, right? So what's your input around the same?
So, in my view, conventional or traditional trainings, they focus heavily on theory, mathematics, model architecture. Those foundations are important, but from an industry readiness, we require additional 3 layers. First is, a problem, applied problem solving. So learner must work on real data set, or they should focus on the domain specific knowledge, or they should work with the deployment scenarios. Second is the production exposure. So knowing how your model move from your notebook environment to real scalable or the secure systems, and you know, how the production happens. And last is,
So I think when we talk about the classroom learning, and we talk about the learning about the mathematical models, how do you see the the new tools and technologies being used for training? For example, are there any examples? Probably you can quote some examples. We have seen that students are now able to not just see the typical learning of the classroom, but what other tools and technologies they are being exposed, so the learning gets increased. The learning speed of learning becomes faster.
so basically in our sector, we are utilizing AI to assess the skill gaps. So now there are tools who, based on the participant profile, is able to assess the learning gaps and recommend adaptive learnings. So which eventually help increasing the employability outcome. Uh, that's so this is how the AI is helping today.
Great. I think while we are probably somewhere almost towards the end, but we have one more set of questions. But just to keep the audience, anybody wants to have one quick question, please. Can somebody bring the mic to them? Can somebody please bring the mic to them? Right. I think I wanted to go one more round of questions, but just to keep the interactiveness, because the audience is also limited, I don't want you guys to get bored about what we are speaking. So anybody can probably ask one or two questions. Thank you.
हेलो एवरीवन, नमस्कार
Please,
सभी को।
हाँ जी।
मैं हिंदी
Just
में बात करूंगा।
quickly आप हिंदी में बात करिए, आप अपना नाम बताइए अपना।
जी, मेरा नाम विक्रम त्रिपाठी है, मैं प्रयागराज के एक गांव से हूं और आने वाले अपकमिंग जो इलेक्शंस हैं, पंचायत इलेक्शंस, उसमें पार्टिसिपेट करने जा रहा हूं। जिला पंचायत इलेक्शन होता है, लगभग 25 गांव का एक जिला पंचायत सदस्य होता है
जी।
सो अगर मैं चुनाव जीतता हूं तो पहले फर्स्ट ईयर में मुझे जो एआई टूल्स या जो भी सॉफ्टवेयर्स अवेलेबल हैं, मुझे ऐसे कौन से 3 सेक्टर्स हैं जहां पे मुझे वो यूज़ करना चाहिए। और सेकेंडली क्या ये पॉसिबल है कि जैसे प्राइवेट कंपनीज सीएसआर फंड्स
Then for each type of bias, one bias index is produced depending upon matrices. For one bias, I can use a number of matrices also. Result of all the matrices are clubbed to find the bias index for one particular parameter. Then a system can have bias due to many things, and different bias indexes are clubbed to find one fairness index. The fairness index ranges from 0 to 1. If it is 1, then it is considered fair. If it is 0, it cannot be used. But in practice, the fairness index will be from 0 to 1. Then it will depend upon the user also, if he wants to have how much fairness in the system. If the system is used to suggest what song would you like to hear, then some bias may be accepted. If system is supposed to identify whether the soldier is enemy or our own, then no bias can be accepted. So that can be used by the deployer, and those matrices or the framework we have suggested, it can be used by deployer, the developers also. The engineers who are involved in developing those systems, those people can also test their models if it is fair or not. And it can be used by the regulators also. The regulator may say, the government may say, for such sector, the system should be tested and it should have at least this much fairness level. Similar to fairness, we have got one standard for robustness also, which can be used to check if the system gives consistent results in different situations.
Great, and I'm sure these standards are available in the public domain. They are
Yes,
not still
yes,
draft
yes.
stages, right?
You know, the fairness standard is available in public domain since 23.
Okay.
And the robustness standard we are going to release maybe in
All companies are more towards the tier 1 cities and tier. But if I talk about the tier 2, it's still the gap is now growing much
No,
bigger.
let me tell you, the gap has grown because we were a static kind of a thing. Like we had, Dr. Sarabjot said that the AI is now generating Gurbani, which is considered to be static. AI will, as the technologies evolve very fast, I told in the beginning that it took just 3 years for ChatGPT to have close to 1 billion users. 800 million approximately they've cost. So you got to be ready because technology is available. The coding skills are available. Only thing which is processors. GPUs are not available. We have now a mission from the Ministry of Electronics and IT where 10,000 crores have been given. You should look for these things, and GPUs probably, as they become cheaper, the gap would lessen. But unless the GPUs are available, you can't really do it.
Now, I think the GPU perspective you see today, I think 38,000 core GPUs, is made available through the India. And I think this model of democratizing the AI resources is seen as from the global world also, that what India has been able to achieve is something which is phenomenal right now. So I think we will, and I think as earlier spoken, STPI also provides a lot of resources in the form of centers of entrepreneurships which we establish across the India, and each center of entrepreneurships allows the. कर लिया, बात नहीं हुई? So it's each of these centers is also focused on not just hand holding the from the perspective of entrepreneurial skill set, but also matching bringing you closer to the market and funding you also, right? So mentorship, market assistance, the funding, and the most important perspective is also global exposure along with the infrastructure is what we provide in centers of entrepreneurship. But let me thank let's close this session right now. So I would like to thank the all the panelists here. Thank you all for your time. I think certain key takeaways from the sessions is very clear. When we want to from the perspective of the AI skills, it's an important time for all of us. The skill gap and skill requirement is something which is evolving, and each one of us have to be well versed, both in the form of a technology, application, and the standards. And when we look into three perspective, this exciting time, and I must thank all my panelists here. They have been able to bring brainstorm and ensure that the right message has gone out to you. So with a background of applause from everyone here, thank you to the panelists, and I would request them to come forward for a group photograph as well. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be in touch. Let's stay in touch. So we'll see you in campus. What we'll do is that we'll invite you to